In 23 years representing families affected by romance scam, I have seen 5 specific mistakes that repeat themselves in nearly every case. Not 4, not 6. 5 specific mistakes, in chronological order, that appear in sequence in almost every story that walks through my door. Those who make all 5 lose everything. Those who stop at 4 still preserve part. Those who stop at 3 lose only symbolically. Those who stop at 1 or 2 usually walk away without significant financial harm. Today, I'm going to lay out these 5 mistakes with the precision of someone who has seen the pattern unfold hundreds of times. I won't tell you a single story. I will tell you 5 fragments, one for each mistake, so you can recognize where you are, or where someone in your family is, in the sequence. I'm Marcus Webb, estate and probate attorney for 23 years, working exclusively on contested wills, fraudulent transfers, and elder financial exploitation cases. I practice in the Chicago metropolitan area, with clients across Illinois and several neighboring states. Unlike colleagues who approach this work emotionally, my approach is more technical. I do not try to persuade through appeal, I expose the mechanism. I show how the scam is structured, what the sequence is, what separates a recoverable case from a lost one. Precision is the best antidote to fraud that exists, and romance scam in particular is one of the most predictable frauds in victim behavior, and one of the most unpredictable in justice system response. Predictable, because the mistakes are always the same. Unpredictable, because recovery of the money is, in the overwhelming majority of cases, impossible after consummation. Mistake number 1. Accepting contact from someone who commented on your photo. Mrs. Helen, 68 years old, widowed, retired math teacher from suburban Virginia, posted a Facebook photo with her granddaughter on the girl's 8th birthday. The photo was seen by family friends, relatives, former colleagues, normal people. It was also seen by a profile she did not know, with an English name, photo of a distinguished man, friendly comment in translated English. "What a beautiful granddaughter. What a proud grandmother. Congratulations." Mrs. Helen accepted the friend request from that profile 2 days later. They started exchanging messages. The man introduced himself as a retired civil engineer living in Edinburgh, Scotland, widowed, 2 married children. Within 3 weeks, they were chatting daily. Here is the technical mistake. When you post a personal photo on a Facebook profile that is open to the public, anyone in the world can see it, including, and especially, professional scammer profiles that scan specific demographic groups to select targets. They are looking for exactly photos like Mrs. Helen's. Woman over 60, visible widowhood through profile cues, evident family bonds, posts with affection. That's a profile of emotional vulnerability combined with financial stability. When that person comments on your photo and immediately follows up with a friend request, it is not a coincidence. It is procedure. The scammer chose you because your profile showed that you are the kind of person they can work with. The scale of this is industrial. Operation centers in Nigeria, Ivory Coast, the Philippines have dozens of operators working in shifts like a call center, each managing between 5 and 15 relationships simultaneously in different languages. There are spreadsheets, there are scripts, there is supervisor review. The profile that added Mrs. Helen is not the same person who chatted with her 3 months later. They are different operators reading the same conversation history, maintaining the same character, executing the same timeline with small regional variations. The technical rule. Do not accept friend requests from unknown people who commented on one of your photos without a clear reason, especially if that person has an open profile only a few weeks old, with generic photos, with no history of older interactions. That kind of profile carries a creation signature that the professional sees in 3 clicks. Mistake number 2. Continuing the conversation after the first financial request, in any amount. Mr. Joseph, 71 years old, retired contractor from Cleveland, Ohio, met a woman in a Facebook group for senior travelers. She introduced herself as Sarah, a 64-year-old American widow, former nurse, living in Lisbon in a house she had inherited from her mother. 2 months of messages. He hesitated at the first request, but continued. The first request was for $200, for a pharmacy gift card. She said she had forgotten her American credit card at home and that she needed an urgent blood pressure medication in Lisbon. Asked him to buy an online gift card for the Portuguese pharmacy chain, send the code by message, which she would use to pick up the medication at the local store. He found it strange, but did it. $200, a small amount in relation to his wealth, and the justification seemed plausible for an emergency. That was the mistake. Here is the mechanism. The first financial request has 2 functions for the scammer. 1. to test whether the victim is already conditioned to transfer. 2. To create the initial emotional investment. The person who sent the $200 now has a registered care bond in their own self-image. I helped someone in need. I did the right thing. And every future request will be interpreted by the victim through that lens. I helped before. It would make sense to keep helping. Mr. Joseph, in 4 months, sent $72,000 to Sarah through successive requests. Each request had a different justification. Unexpected surgery for a son of Sarah's. Portuguese tax fine. Paying a process server for an American citizenship document. Retainer for an attorney to handle an estate dispute in Boston. Each request came with attached documentation, with photo of an invoice, with official-looking seals. When Mr. Joseph finally sought help after his daughter discovered the bank history, Sarah had vanished. Photo stolen from a real Australian nurse with a different name we discovered later through reverse image search. Profile deleted, number disconnected, email deactivated. All within 48 hours, the moment he started asking firmer questions. The technical rule. In any relationship started online with a person you have never met in person, the first financial request, in any amount, ends the conversation. You do not respond with no, you block. Unblocking that contact is the same as continuing the sequence. You become conditioned the moment you justify the first request to yourself. If you're watching this video now, it is likely that you or someone in your family is at one of the 5 points in the sequence. Could be at mistake 1, just taking the first steps. Could be at mistake 4 or 5, with significant damage already done. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below with the number of the mistake where you or someone you know is. Just the number. I read every comment. It is a way for me to map where the cases are concentrating, and also a way for other people to see they are not alone. Back to the 5 mistakes. Mistake number 3, hiding the contact from family. Mrs. Eleanor, 73 years old, widowed, retired elementary teacher from suburban Houston, 3 adult children living in 3 different states. Met a man online in October. By January of the following year, 3 months later, she stopped mentioning him to family. Not because she had argued with anyone, because she had begun to perceive that her family became concerned when she spoke about him, and she wanted to spare her children the worry. That was the point where the scam accelerated. Without the family filter listening to her stories, without anyone from outside asking critical questions, without anyone to challenge the man's narrative, she began living inside a closed reality with only 2 people, her and the scammer. The scammer dictated the narrative. She accepted it. Isolation is the most dangerous step in the sequence, not because it is the moment when the largest amounts of money leave, but because it is the moment when all external defenses are switched off. Family is the natural alarm system against this kind of fraud. When that alarm is disabled by the victim herself, the scam enters the acceleration phase. Here is what many do not understand. The scammer normally encourages isolation actively. He does it subtly, says things like, "Your family doesn't understand what we have, don't tell them yet. Let's keep our secret until the right time. I want to know you better before introducing myself to them. They will want to disrupt our happiness." Each of those phrases has a single objective: keeping the victim out of contact with people who could interrupt the scheme. Mrs. Eleanor, after 6 months, had stopped attending the monthly meetings of the women's group at her parish, which she had attended for 15 years. Had stopped accepting Sunday dinner invitations at her oldest daughter's house. Had changed the password on her Facebook and her email so that her son could no longer casually access them as before. Had started inventing excuses not to answer family calls when he was online chatting with her. Each of those changes, in isolation, looked like normal aging. Together, they formed the exact pattern of mistake number 3, the technical rule. If the person on the other side of the screen has at any point asked you to keep the relationship from your family, it is a scam. A real person, with real intentions, with a real life, wants to be introduced to family as quickly as possible. A request for prolonged secrecy is in the scammer's playbook. Mistake number 4, sending the first transfer, even small. Mrs. Dorothy, 71 years old, widowed, retired federal employee from suburban Maryland, sent $400 by international wire to pay a hospital bill for a man she had met 5 months earlier on Instagram. He needed it to disembark from the oil platform where he was working, in the North Sea, and have emergency surgery at a port of call. The bill came in pounds sterling, with official hospital seals. The photo of the man showed his bandaged foot on a stretcher with a blood-stained dressing. Heart-wrenching message, voice note in his voice saying he was in pain, in English with a Texas accent. Mrs. Dorothy sent the 400. In 8 months, after 29 other requests, she had sent $135,000. Here is the financial mechanism of the scam. The first transfer is not the goal. The first transfer is the test and the trigger. Test, to confirm that the victim is capable of operationalizing international transfers. Trigger, to create the psychological effect known as escalation of commitment. The person who sent 400 feels that she now needs to protect those 400. How does she protect them? By making sure the man arrives safely, has the surgery, recovers, returns, marries her. In other words, by sending more. The escalation process is gradual and intentional. The scale typically goes like this, in most cases I see. First request, amount between $200 and $1,000, justification of small medical or customs emergency. Second request, in 3 to 6 weeks, amount between $2,000 and $5,000, slightly larger justification, medical complication or attorney fee. Third request, in 1 or 2 months, amount between $10,000 and $25,000, justification of legal process or release of held asset. Fourth request and beyond, amounts in growing order, normally tied to the release of a larger sum he claims to be about to receive, to justify the investment. The math of the scheme is designed so that the total extracted lands somewhere between 2 and 10 times the value of the first transfer, multiplied by 10. Whoever sends 400 typically loses between $80,000 and $400,000 before the scheme is interrupted. Whoever sends 1,000 typically loses between $200,000 and $1 million. The technical rule. There is no small transfer in romance scam. Every transfer is a test. The difference between the person who loses $400 and the person who loses $400,000 is a choice made at the first transfer. Mistake number 5, returning to transfer after the big request. This is the final mistake, the point of no return. Mrs. Patricia, 70 years old, widowed, retired accountant from suburban Tampa, had sent in 13 months $92,000 to the man she thought was her American fiancé. The last request had been $38,000 to release an inheritance held up at British Customs. She sent it. The money, according to the scammer, was going to be returned with interest in 3 weeks, along with the others he already owed her. 3 weeks passed. The money did not come back. The man said there was a new problem, another $14,000, to resolve it definitively this time. She sent it. Another problem, another $7,000. She sent it. Final total, $153,000. Mrs. Patricia's turning point was the request after the big $38,000. There was a moment where she could have stopped. When the big money did not return in 3 weeks, as promised, that was the evidence. That was the clear sign. She saw it. Mrs. Patricia told me afterward, I knew at that moment. I knew it was a scam. But she sent the $14,000 anyway. Why? Because after $92,000 invested in the relationship, stopping meant accepting that she had lost everything. Continuing meant keeping alive the possibility of recovering. Escalation of commitment reaches maximum intensity at this point. The victim has invested so much emotionally and financially that the psychological cost of accepting the loss is greater than the cost of continuing to lose. Mrs. Patricia, after sending the $14,000 that came after the $38,000, began selling personal belongings to keep transferring. Jewelry that had been her mother's heirloom, her late husband's car, 2 conservative investment funds that were meant for home repairs. When she finally stopped, it was from exhaustion, not from decision. She had nothing left tangible to sell. The man, at that moment, simply walked away from the scene, vanished, did not even say goodbye. The scammer knows this, counts on it. The cycle of post-big money requests is the cycle where he extracts an additional 50 to 100% of the total already sent. For many victims, more money flows in this final cycle than during the entire prior year of the relationship. The technical rule. If you sent a large amount and the promised return did not come on the promised date, it is a scam. Definitive. There is no scenario where a real person promises a return in 3 weeks and takes 6. Stop. Accept what you have lost. Do not throw more money to try to save what is already gone. Those are the 5 mistakes. Accepting contact, continuing after the first request, hiding from family, sending the first transfer, returning to transfer after the big request. Most of the victims I represent committed all 5. Some stopped at 4 with moderate damage and still preserved part of their wealth. Very few stopped at 3 with merely symbolic damage. The ones who stopped at 1 or 2 were typically those who heard from a family member in time, before the contact became a relationship. The typical timeline of a complete case, from mistake 1 to mistake 5, runs 9 to 18 months. Faster cases happen with victims in recent grief, widowed less than 2 years, normally with damage concentrated in 3 or 4 months of intense extraction. Slower cases happen with victims who maintain more frequent family contact, and the scammer calibrates pace not to trigger alarm. I cannot recover the money that leaves through this sequence. It is not findable. Recipients are international accounts that open and close in 48 hours. International cooperation requests with Nigeria, Ivory Coast, the Philippines, Romania take months to begin processing. The money is converted into cryptocurrency, fragmented across dozens of wallets, laundered within hours. There is no American legal technology capable of reaching that in time. What is left for the family, after the scheme is interrupted, is damage management work. The victim enters a depressive state, frequently moderate to severe, feels shame at admitting the size of the loss, distances herself from her children because she feels judged, abandons healthy routines. In some cases, and I see this often, the victim returns to seek contact with the scammer, even knowing it was a scam, because the alternative is facing the void that existed before the scheme entered her life. What the scam extracted was not only money, it also took the sense of purpose she had built during the months of the relationship. This is why the only strategy that works is prevention, not reaction, not litigation, not law enforcement. It is the victim not making mistake 1, or stopping at mistake 2, or at most at mistake 3. After that, recovery is essentially nil. I'm going to give you now the 3 concrete things you need to do today, not tomorrow, based on the 5 mistakes. 1. If you are over 60 and have been added recently by someone who commented on a photo of yours, someone you do not know, do a reverse image search on that person's main photo. How to do it. You take a photo of the person, save it on your phone or computer, open Google, go to Images, click the camera icon, upload the photo. In 3 seconds, you see every place on the internet where the photo appears. If it shows up on other profiles with other names, it is a scam. If it shows up on modeling websites, it is a scam. No exception. 2. If that person has asked you for money at any point in any amount, end the contact. Block. Don't respond with no, don't try to explain, don't enter a conversation. Block directly. Explanation only helps the scammer calibrate the argument for next time. 3. If you have a mother, aunt, mother-in-law, neighbor over 60 who has changed her behavior in recent months, talk to her. Don't accuse, don't confront. Talk. Ask casually if she has met someone online recently. If yes, ask the 4 basic questions. Has she seen them in person? Have they ever asked for money? Can she do a reverse image search now? Would she trust this person to care for a grandchild for an afternoon? And one important thing, family shame is the scammer's greatest ally. If you discover that your mother or your aunt has fallen for this scam, do not accuse, do not recriminate, do not shame. The victim is not the guilty party. The victim was the target of a professional scheme designed specifically to do what it did. Shaming the victim closes the channel of conversation and pushes her further into isolation, which is exactly what the scammer wants. The intervention that works is technical and cool. Show the facts, the stolen photo, the IP origin, the real profile of the real person. Don't argue with the victim's heart. Argue with the documents. That is what I have learned to do over 23 years. It is the method that gives the highest probability that the victim will see before everything is lost. I see the sequence of the 5 mistakes every week in my office. Every week a family comes in with the victim at one of the points. Sometimes I'm able to intervene at mistake 3. Sometimes I only see the case after mistake 5, when all the money is already gone. If you have stayed with me until now, thank you. Truly. I know it isn't easy to listen to these stories, but I'd rather tell them than talk about anything else, because this information is the one thing that effectively protects. Send this video to someone you love who is over 60. Send it to your mother, your father, your aunt, your mother-in-law. You don't have to explain much. Just send it. Tell her you watched it, found it important, wanted her to see it before anything happens. Because romance scam is a sequence of 5 mistakes. Every mistake avoided saves family wealth. Every mistake avoided preserves family relationships. And the person watching this can be the one who prevents mistake number 1 in the life of someone in the family. I'm Marcus Webb. Stay with me on the channel. The next analysis I'm already preparing.